Thank you for attending. My name is Hannah Talley. I'm here with my counterpart, Peggy Kochner. We're the two administrative assistants to the directors of elections here at the St. Louis County Election Board. We are the ones who answer any questions about candidate filing and certification. And we also coordinate, you coming in and certifying and putting together the ballot for the April election. So we are recovering from our busy midterm November election a few weeks ago. Still working on getting that certified. So we're pretty busy here, but we're always looking forward to our April election. So we'll be going through each slide with as much information as possible. But if you have any questions throughout, put them in the chat box. Peggy's going to be monitoring the chat box and she'll interrupt me if there's any questions. And then we'll also do kind of a question and answer session at the end. And then, of course, if you have any questions that aren't answered today, always feel free to give us a call, email us, stop by. We're always here to help. So we will go ahead and get started. So first thing is what's new. You may or may not know about HB 1878. It's the elections bill that went into effect at the end of August. So it was in place for this past November election. This changes a lot of election law, but we will discuss more in that, more details of HB 1878 later in the presentation. All right, so authorized officials. These are the people authorized in your district to basically certify election content to us. It's an authorized official does not have to take they can take candidate filings, but people who are not authorized officials can take candidate filings. It's just that the person who signs off on the certification of your district needs to be the authorized official that we have on file. So we do ask, we would like you to have a new one sent to us every year. But really, it's just important if you have any changes to your contact information or your authorized official. We do need to keep those updated as much as we can for important election business. That form is included in the packet that was sent to you all. So if you have not already, go ahead and submit us a new updated form at your earliest convenience. You can fax, put those in the mail or email to us, either to me or Peggy directly, or that BOEC ballot email on the form there. So the official is typically your city, village, or town clerk for your municipality. And then for school boards and fire districts and other special districts, it's usually the secretaries to the boards there. But it can be anyone you designate or have available to sign off on that important election information. If you don't have regular business hours at your offices, please provide an alternate phone number for you or someone that we can contact in case of, an emergency or an important deadline, whether that's a cell phone or some other form of contact we can get there. All right, candidate filing, the reason we're all here. We always recommend you review RSMO 115.125. That's the big statute regarding candidate filing. Discuss it with your attorney if you have any questions, especially if you are a chartered city. I do want to premise that charter cities do have some have their own filing dates. So not everything that we mentioned today is going to coordinate with charter cities. So definitely always have your attorney on hand to call for any charter city questions. But candidate filing is an intricate process, as you all know, and the deadlines, especially the new deadlines that are shorter and earlier than usual, are not always easy. All candidates have certain requirements provided in state statute, including residency, tax, criminal status, and other requirements. Many districts have additional qualifications other than what's in state statute, depending on your ordinances or bylaws. So make sure you have those in the back of your mind when you're taking candidate filings. It is helpful to provide a list of all of your requirements to your candidates when they file so that they understand what they're getting into, and that so that they understand everything that they must qualify for taking office. And we've provided an example of our declaration of candidacy form in the packet. It's very simple. It has everything that is needed in state statute. Of course, you don't have to use our template of our declaration of candidacy. A lot of you do, which is great. It is definitely not required, but we do provide that just in case you need a simple and format of declaration of candidacy. But if you do require other things in your ordinances or bylaws, you're more than happy to, or more than welcome to make that fit as you need it to be. Let's talk about legal and registered names. So the legal and registered name may be different than how they would like their name to appear on the ballot, which is okay. Nicknames are okay as long as they are actually referred to by that name. So for example, just easy ones, yeah, Peggy. Her legal name is Margaret. If she wanted to go on the ballot as Peggy, that would be okay. She's known by Peggy. Some other easy examples are John for Jonathan or Dottie for Dorothy. Where we get into the legal issue is your titles. So no doctors, no reverends, no CPA, nothing like that can be on the ballot. If you have any questions regarding ballot names, it's best suited for your attorneys as we can't give legal advice. But usually the nicknames are okay as long as they're actually referred to that in public. And yeah, you're probably all familiar with the 5120 and 5120 forms. The 5120 is the tax affidavit that every candidate must file in order to have a complete filing. By law, it is kind of tied to the declaration of candidacy form. So one is not complete without the other. A 5121 form is kind of a direct complaint against a candidate's 5120 form. This can be filed by anyone. It is the responsibility of the complainant to pursue with the Department of Revenue. So if you call us to complain that one of your candidates is delinquent in taxes or has a tax issue on their record, we will tell you to file a 5121 with the Department of Revenue. They're the only ones that can judge a candidate's qualifications in terms of their taxes. Our office does not have any authority to remove or disqualify a candidate. We'll talk more about that on the next slide, but candidates may decide to withdraw. This is much easier to do for them and for us and for you if it's done before the candidate filing deadline. But as always, your attorney is the best person to contact if you have any withdrawal questions. So more on disqualification. We have no authority to remove, disqualify, or reject a candidate's filing, but there are 3 entities who can, and that is 1, the Department of Revenue, again, by investigating a 5120 form, usually stemmed by the 5121 form. The Missouri Ethics Commission, if a candidate fails to file the personal financial disclosure form with them, or if they have any other ethics law violations, the MEC has the authority to remove a candidate on that basis. And lastly, the circuit court, pretty much for anything else. Typically, they'll judge a candidate's qualifications for any residency issues. So unless your district has an ordinance or bylaw providing you the authority to judge a candidate's qualifications, you cannot and are not required to verify the qualifications of your candidates. If you do take it upon yourself to refuse a filing without proper authority, this could result in litigation. And in the past, this has led to separate elections for these candidates, and the expense will fall on your district alone. So you definitely always want to seek legal advice when it comes to the qualifications of candidates, and definitely depend on these 3 entities, the DOR, MEC, and the circuit court, to judge those qualifications as necessary. Some frequently asked questions that we receive. So the deadline for the April 4th election is for certification, not candidate filing, sorry, is January 24th at 5:00 p.m. If you must file late because of an issue, or if you forget, which does happen sometimes, you will need to obtain a court order to certify. We do always try to do a roll call. We keep a list of what is expected for the April election as far as candidates go. So if we see about a couple days before the deadline that you have not yet come in and we haven't heard from you, we will usually try to reach out and just check in and see where we're at, which usually helps us in the long run. So the 2 weeks after the 24th is the absolute drop dead deadline where anything can be added, removed, or changed with a court order. After that, nothing can change by law. The certification documents must be delivered to us in person by certified mail or by courier. Definitely remember that if you choose to send us your documents through certified mail, the documents must arrive at our office by 5 p.m. on the deadline date, otherwise it is considered late. So the law doesn't take into effect the postmark date. It is when they are arrived in our office. So then we'll talk more about the no election required as part of RSMO 115.124 later. But just to recap, school and fire districts automatically qualify for the non-election statute should they meet the requirements, along with districts that have less than 2,000 inhabitants and who have passed a proposition by the voters allowing them to forego uncontested elections. How this works is a district qualifies for the non-election if the number of candidates who have filed for an office is equal to the number of seats available. So for example, if only one candidate files for Alderperson Ward 1, there is one person to be elected, then there would not need to be an election held for this office. If a school district has 2 candidates file for director and there are only 2 to be elected, then the school district would not have to hold an election. But we'll talk more about that more in depth, I believe, on the next slide. Since we acquired our new voting equipment in 2019, we use audio ballots in all elections. So we do ask that you complete the audio ballot pronunciation guide and turn them in with your certification. Otherwise, if we don't have one of those, we will just do our best to pronounce the names correctly on the audio ballot for those voters who have hearing issues. Yeah, or visual issues, yeah. A little bit about write-ins. All write-ins file at our office for the municipal elections, and we will send you all notifications of any write-ins that come in from your district as we receive them. So you'll never be left in the dark about write-ins. We will always notify you if there are any in your district. So again, if you have any office where no candidate is filed and it says so on the ballot, all write-ins are valid and will be counted and included in your certified results. Again, all we do here at our office is certify the results to you. It is up to you and your councils, boards, attorneys as to who takes the seats and how that works. So more about the NIEs. We've experienced issues in the past with these non-elections, so we wanted to expand this a little bit and go more in depth. So specific districts, like we mentioned, qualify to hold non-elections if the number of candidates who file for office is equal to the number of positions available. If a candidate withdraws before filing ends, you still must hold the election, even if the number of candidates then equals the number of positions at the end of the deadline, which is unfortunate, but that is the law. And you must publish the required filing notice in a newspaper of general circulation in your district. And it's important to read that statute very carefully. If your district does not publish this notification and has the proper documents at certification time, you will be required to hold the election. So if you publish it, but it's after filing has already opened, that would be considered, yeah, too late. So that would require the election to be held. Make sure that the newspaper is covered by law. So definitely reach out to your attorney about what newspapers qualify in that statute. So if you do hold a non-election, there are several things you must provide to us to certify. So we will need a letter from your district signed by the authorized official stating it has published the required notice, that the number of candidates equals the number of positions available, and a list of the candidate or candidates that will assume office, including their name, address, time they filed, lottery number if you use a lottery system, and a statement that an election is not needed. And you also must include the affidavit of the publication from the publisher that you used and a copy of the newspaper containing the notice, and also the publication of legal notices form so that we know when we have to publish your non-election information by statute. So like I said, we will publish the notice containing the names of those assuming office in a newspaper of general circulation. We often use the St. Louis County and the Legal Ledger, and that is pretty much the only cost that will be charged to your district for an election. If you have any questions as to what qualifies as a proper newspaper or publication, like we mentioned, always contact your attorney. That's the best person who can give you legal advice. So forms for certification, we use several of them. We have fillable copies on our website and in the packet that's been emailed to you. So the first is the certification of candidates, which most of you will be using. You will enter your district and the type and date of election at the top of each page, and you will select a ward or district number and the number of years in the term. And remember that if you have an unexpired term, to create a separate page for these candidates, as it is a different office. Otherwise, we will be very confused and may make a mistake and put them all on the same ballot, which would not be good. So definitely separate your unexpired terms from your regular terms. And if you have any questions, always feel free to give us a call. We're happy to explain that for you. So then you'll list the candidates' names as they are to appear on the ballot, and the date and time that they filed. Put the names in ballot order so we know how to place them on the ballot. If you use the first day lottery, include your lottery numbers, and then also include the candidates' addresses. And don't forget about the law regarding candidate nicknames and titles. The certification of propositions page only needs to be completed if you are certifying a proposition to go on the ballot. So you'll want to include the exact language as it is to appear on the ballot. It must include a title, be in mixed case, and include yes or no. If state law or a charter provision that you have specifically provides something other than yes or no, which has happened in the past, just send us a copy of that provision and then we'll work it out from there. Again, we do use an audio ballot at every election, so it's not the end of the world if you don't send that to us. We will just try our best to pronounce your candidates' names. The publication of legal notices form. This lets us know when your district, or if and when your district requires additional publications other than what's required by state law. It's pretty rare for districts to require additional publications, but some of you do. So if you're not sure about this, check with your attorney. It should be in your ordinances or your bylaws or your charter. And the attestation form must be signed by your authorized official, the one we have on file with our office. If you have questions about who we have on file, because those change a lot, we get them a lot throughout the year, just let us know. You can update that at any time throughout the year and as many times as you need. And then another important distinction we want to make is please make sure your district and office titles are accurate. For example, alderman versus alderperson or councilman versus council member. Those are important for us to know when we're building the ballot so we can make sure those are all accurate for you. All right, so there are things included in the packet that was sent to you, including the ballot wording memo explaining our policy regarding ballot wording. We do always recommend, or not even recommend, we appreciate ballot word or propositions that are less than 50 words. We know that's difficult, especially with bond propositions. So we will be happy to work with you if we ever to fit it on the ballot, which we usually do for April elections. It's usually general elections or primary elections where we run out of room. So April's are pretty good for that. It also includes the policy for ballot changes. So any late candidate or proposition certifications may be opposed by our office in court, just depending on the timeline. But because of the new law, where there's only 2 weeks after the certification deadline to change anything, we usually just hold off on any final changes until that deadline anyway. So that's usually not a problem for us now with that new law. Once certification is over, usually a week or two after that deadline on the 24th of January, we'll be emailing everyone the ballot approval form. This will include the ballot content report, which has all of the issues, candidates, and everything for the whole entire election. So you'll just find your district and proof that report against your original certifications, just to make sure we didn't make any typos or any other mistakes. If corrections are needed, please let us know as soon as possible, but especially before the deadline that we give you. And then if there are no mistakes, just go ahead and check that box and send it back to us to let us know that it's correct, so we know that we can go ahead and move forward with the ballot building process. If we do not hear back by the deadline, no changes will be made, even if there is a mistake, because we don't know if there is a mistake if you don't let us know. Reminder that the ballot approval form is to make sure what was originally certified by you is what is on the report. It's not an opportunity to make last minute changes to the certifications. Changes can only be made before the certification deadline, just to keep that in mind. When to call your attorney. It's always best to reach out to your attorney first, especially with legal questions, as we cannot provide you with any legal advice. If you have any questions about a candidate's qualifications, their 5120 forms, or disqualification by the MEC or DOR, anything in your ordinances or bylaws, candidate withdraws, especially after the certification deadline, or late certification with a court order, your attorney is always the best one to help you with those issues. So the Missouri Ethics Commission, we always like to throw in some information for them. They have good resources for your candidates if they ask you any questions about campaign finance reports or anything like that. They will be holding webinar trainings, and they've posted these on their website where the candidates can register and go take those webinars. I have attached, or I guess I've included that link on this page if you need it. And the MEC should have sent you all their filing packets. So most of you have probably received those already. If not, I would definitely reach out to them, as they should have been there already, but they can always help. They're very nice at the MEC, and they can help you with whatever information you need. All candidates will need to at least complete a notice to candidate form, which should be included in those packets from the MEC. This designates whether or not they have to complete a personal financial disclosure form, or the PFDs as we call them. The MEC, yeah, again, they should have included those in their packets. If your annual operating budget is under $1 million, your candidates will not need to complete the personal financial disclosure form. If it is over 1 million, they more than likely will need to complete either the short or the long PFD form. Again, if you're unsure, just reach out to the MEC. I think her name's Shauna or Shanna. She's very helpful. Yeah. And she will let you know what your candidates are required as far as the PFD, if you need a short or long form, or if you need one at all. But in any case, you will definitely need to complete the notice to candidate form. RSMO 130.071 explains all of the reporting penalties. So if your candidates have any questions about that, just refer them to that statute, and they should be able to figure out what they need, or always just refer them to the MEC and they'll be able to get help there too. The MEC does have a YouTube channel that has a bunch of webinars recorded and a bunch of information that is a great resource for candidates. So circling back to HB 1878, this bill went into effect at the end of August and was in place for this past November election. So the two most relevant changes for you all is the new photo ID requirement and the 2 weeks of added no excuse in-person absentee voting. So voters now may only present a photo identification to vote, which includes a Missouri driver or non-driver license, a United States passport, or a military ID. Each of these IDs must not have expired prior to the last general election. And for voters voting in the April election, that would be this election a few weeks ago, November 8, 2022. So as always, if a voter does not have one of these forms, they can always cast a provisional ballot, which we will review and count if their signature matches their record. And Peggy and I are busy verifying provisional ballots from the November election still. So that is always something voters are allowed to cast if they have no form of ID. Also new is the 2 weeks of no excuse in-person absentee voting. Some may call it early voting. It's just voting in person without an excuse that voters typically have to do. They still have to provide an excuse from that 6 weeks out mark. Absentee voting opens 6 weeks before every election. So from 6 to 4 weeks before the election, they do have to provide an excuse like they usually do. And then beginning on March 21st, I believe, is 2 weeks before the April election, they can come to our office and vote with no excuse in person. It is yet to be decided if we will have satellite locations available for the April election. That will be decided closer then, but always voters can come vote in person at our office in St. Anne. If they want to vote by mail, they do have to provide an excuse to vote by mail. So in closing, you can find the election calendar for 2023 in the packet and on our website. Our website has a lot of information and can always be used as a helpful resource for your election questions and also the candidates. To keep up with legislative changes, always keep track of www.mo.gov. And I included some of those dates that we are closed for the holidays during the candidate filing timeline and the certification timeline. So keep those on your calendar. Otherwise, we are always here from 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. If you have any questions or need to come by, and certify your documents. Otherwise, we're always available, email, phone call, however you need to get a hold of us.